Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of DEI Deathwatch, where we chronicle the downfall and the doubling down of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm your host, Scribelight. Welcome to Monday. It is Monday, isn't it? I think so. Anyway, Monday it is, and here we are. I had to do this today. I'd usually do it on a Tuesday, but tomorrow I have a dentist appointment, so here I am. Rock you like a hurricane. How's everybody doing today? Hope you're doing well. Hoi! Busy couple of days. Not much more to say about it, just as, you know. Alexander, good afternoon. The Moist Tree Rat, hello. Keeverdam, hello, and thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the link to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society donation page, guys, at the top of the chat box. Please take a look at that when you have the opportunity. If you can donate, please do so, but even if you can't, if you can share that out on social media, that would be appreciated. So thank you ahead of time, and thank you, Keeverdam, as always, for providing the link. Blue-Eyed Scream, hello. Tack Alpaca, hello. Somnamnul Nation, hello. Robert Pincus, hello. Resolute Germ, hello. Unfair Ophelia, good afternoon. Miranda Stone is here. Guys, I don't know if you know about Miranda Stone. I don't know. I mean, it's possible you don't. But just on the channel. Daryl Odell, and good afternoon. Morgan King, hello. Advocatus Diaboli, good afternoon. And holy cow, or holy cats as the case may be. Attack Alpaca, thanks so much. Hi, Scribe. I wanted to let you know that my mom passed away about a month ago. So you are not alone in your grief. I hope you've been doing okay. Condolences, Alpaca. I I don't even know how I'd be doing if my mother passed. But it's rough. It's rough. I didn't have the closest relationship with my father, but it's a complicated thing. It's affected me quite a bit, and it's not. It comes in waves, I guess is the best way I can put it. You know, day here, day there, I'm fine, and then something will happen, or someone will say something, or I'll see or hear, or even smell something and then all of a sudden it just like. I guess that's natural. I mean, this isn't the first death in my life I've been through, let's say. It's the first close family member within like the realm of my conscious adulthood, let's say. And so I won't say I know what you're going through. I don't think that's something that people can really do, but I empathize, and you have my condolences to you and your family. I hope you're doing well, and thank you so much for the donation. Really appreciate it, and hope in some small way we can both distract each other for a little while with the nonsense of the world. Full Metal Joker, good afternoon. Sabian187, hello. And I think that's everybody I see. If I missed you, if you're lurking, if you're in the future, good afternoon. Let's get into some DEI news. It's been a while, as the band Stained might say. I'm back with some DEI news. Now, you know what I'd always kind of look forward to? I look forward to the day when having DEI on your resume was a mark in your disfavor. And I know that sounds cruel, but given what DEI is, it's kind of what I was hoping for. Well, apparently, that day may have come. We might be there. Let's find out. Think landing a job is hard? Try having DEI on your resume. After 7 rounds of grueling interviews, an offer for a recruiting job seemed within reach for David Daniels IV. David Daniels IV, from a long line of David Daniels. Let me turn down the background music a smidge there. There we go. Until a reference check that Daniels learned had involved wary discussions of his background in diversity, equity, and inclusion, the offer never came. Having DEI experience on a resume can feel like a scarlet letter in an already difficult job market, said Daniels, who lives in New York and had roles at companies including yoga wear retailer Lululemon, Athletica Incorporated. Quote, there's this sense of, if you did DEI, we don't want to hire you, he said. For Daniels and others like him, working in diversity made him hot commodities in corporate America just a few years ago. Now it's a liability. Conservatives have lambasted diversity work as exclusionary. It is. While President Donald Trump's ire against what he has termed illegal DEI has spurred a retrenchment in many companies. Fearing lawsuits and the loss of government contracts, businesses quickly pivoted, downsizing or dismantling their diversity groups. Oh, fearing loss of government contracts, you say. Mark Fields. Thank you so much, Mark Fields. Appreciated. Positive vibes, good sir. Thank you, Mark, very much. Mark, a viewer from over on the Midnight's Edge crew, migrated over here. Nice to see you, Mark. Hope everything's doing well over at Midnight's Edge. I check in occasionally when I'm able in the mornings, but yeah, right in my workday. But when I can pop in, I'll try to do so. So thank you so much, Mark. Appreciate it. Hope you're having a good day. And Kirsten Scholl's over on the X machine. Yes, guys, I am simulcasting on X on the off chance you have an X account and want to go over there. Or just retweet the stream so people know I exist. That works too. Brian Morissette, hello. Marahaba, y'all, and Blarg. Sure. Whatever you say. Yes, but why would businesses be worried about losing government contracts because of DEI programs? I wonder. Ooh, could it be Title VI? Oh, that's right, Title VI. Yeah, you violate Title VI, you effectively give up your right to federal financial assistance. And government contracts for work counts as federal financial assistance. So if you're caught being racist at your company with your diversity programs, you could be putting all of those massive government contracts and taxpayer dollars at risk. Finally, that left DEI professionals who lost their jobs stranded, competing for roles in a tight job market. Among the jobless population in the broader economy, about a quarter have been unemployed for a half year or longer. The highest share, since the mid-2010s, excluding the pandemic-era years. DEI specialists say they're getting less interest from recruiters than they did several years ago, and fewer interviews from companies. Is that because DEI does not denote any real skill set? I know, it's a crazy idea. Going into a business to effectively enact a racial audit somehow, or a gender audit, depending, somehow no longer seems to have any value. Oh well. To bolster their chances, professionals have stripped the 3 letters from resumes and sought roles in adjacent departments, such as in human resources, public affairs, and marketing. Others have weighed changing careers. Oh. One job hunter is Josu, or Hosu, I don't know how to say that, Mendez of New York, who used to work in the diversity group at Ogilvy, an advertising agency owned by WPP plc. Try saying that 5 times fast. In June, weeks after his team won an industry award for a leadership program for its black male employees, sounds specific, he was among those let go. Okay. There's an acceptable level of schadenfreude here on an industry level. I'm not happy that this individual man lost his job, but it is slightly ironic that shortly after winning an award for his work was found to be unnecessary. It's a tightrope, guys. It's an ethical and moral tightrope. Since then, Mendez spends his days scouring job listings and attending job fairs. Did you have, okay, I know a rhetorical question. Did you have no other bankable skills prior to this? What did you go to school for? I mean, I know that now some people can go to school for diversity and get like a degree in DEI, but you did something else before this, right? A conversation with a recruiter was going well, he said, until Mendez mentioned his experience in diversity. Quote, it suddenly went very cold, Mendez recalled. Quote, the second they see any previous work specifically in DEI, they want to stay away, unquote. Probably because it's not a profit center anymore, if it ever was. It's always been a loss. The call ended ahead of schedule. The recruiter later told Mendez he was out of the running for the job. A handful of large corporations remain publicly committed to workplace diversity. Delta Airlines Incorporated, we've covered them. Southwest Airlines, yeah. And Coca-Cola Company have kept the DEI label on their websites. Ooh, I should look for some Coca-Cola diversity reports from the past. See what those look like. And others are now emphasizing veterans and disabled employees. Yes, always a bridesmaid, never a bride. Veterans almost always last on the list of employee resource groups. Now they're actually at the top of the list because you got rid of all the other nonsense. But there's been a wave of reversals in the past year. Amazon.com Incorporated halted some of its programs. McDonald's Corporation stopped setting representation goals. You mean illegal racial and gender quotas. And Goldman Sachs Group Incorporated ended a policy of only taking some companies public if they had diverse board members. I did a video on that back in the day. I think I called it Goldman Sucks. And it was shortly after they made that announcement that they were going to either drop or not take public companies that didn't have at least one. I think the requirement at the time was like one female board member. They might have changed it to one diverse board member or something, but those were the days. Corporate fears around legal risks earlier this year overshadowed everything else, said Tanisha Boye Robinson, whose firm Cap EQ advises companies on diversity and other social issues. Quote, a lot of people basically looked to their legal counsel and asked, what is the way we can protect ourselves from being sued, unquote. Not practice discriminatory hiring. I know, it's a crazy idea. Boggles the mind. Like, hey, maybe we shouldn't break established civil rights laws. You think that could help us avoid legal liability? I don't know. It's crazy enough it might work. Job ads reflect the changed landscape. New postings for diversity roles have approximately halved this year to about 1,500 from 2019 levels, according to Revelio Labs, a firm that analyzes workforces. Postings had almost quadrupled to about 10,000 during the height of the DEI boom in 2022, compared with 2019. Yeah, if you see this chart here, yeah, this was the sweet spot. I mean, like I say, I've said it before, if I started my own DEI consulting firm with all the stuff that I'd absorbed in the 2 or 3 years I'd been doing my YouTube channel at that point, if I'd started in 2019, I would have said 2018. But if I'd started in 2018, man, look at that. Look at the rise. This was peak money. And then it all goes downhill. Since losing her position at a firm advising clients on their diversity efforts late last year, advising clients on their diversity efforts, again, racial and gender audits. That's all this means. That's all that this means. That's all that this has ever meant. Victoria Person in New Orleans has been attending networking events held by the local Chamber of Commerce to help find clients for her new consulting business. What does she consult on now? While she searches for a job. The moment Person mentions her 15-year career working in diversity, people give an uncomfortable laugh, change the subject, or look over her shoulder to find someone else to talk to, she said. Again, I don't want to revel in someone's misery of trying to find employment. At the same time, man, it was always built on sand. Bubble gum and popsicle sticks was the foundation the entire time. Quote, I see and feel people reel back, Pearson said. Quote, there's a lot of fear around this. People don't want to be associated with it. I'm going to have to end the series sooner or later. It's going to be useless. Still, in spite of the current malaise, person said she hopes that diversity programs will reemerge stronger and more inclusive, serving all demographics rather than specific groups. Lady, I hate to tell you this. What are you talking about? Diversity has always been about serving specific groups. And well, I mean, it's been about pointedly excluding specific demographics and seeing all remaining demographics as inherently victims and inherently needing help and inherently disabled in some way, shape, or form. That's the truth of it. You might not want to admit it, but that's the truth. Frosted Glass, thank you so much. Phrenologists are out of work too. Weird. I know. I got the little bumpies on my head. What does it mean? Is it my shampoo or is it, scalpel cysts or something? I don't know. Thank you, Frosted Glass. But yeah, so there you go. The downfall of DEI as a point in your favor on a job resume. Good news, everyone. Good news. I say it's good news. What do you guys say? And what? I don't know. And what, Cognos? I will revel in it for you, Scribe. Well, okay, thank you, Advocatus. It's nice to have proxies. Let's see. Just got here. Oh, okay. Well, welcome, Cognos. Nice to see you. Blue-eyed Scream. It must be difficult to come to the realization that you're useless. Well, I can't help but have a little bit of empathy for people that spent the last 10, 15 years or longer being told that they're important, right? And having paychecks commensurate to the idea that what they do is valuable and what they do is going to have staying power as a career. And then all of a sudden, the rug is yanked out from underneath you because reality sets in, and then everything you've been doing is marked as unwanted, unnecessary, obsolete. And if you really believed in it, like if you really thought and you really bought your own press, and the press put out there by the industry and the politicians and the celebrities, it must be quite a shock. It's got to be quite a shock. So I can have a certain level of empathy for people who are finding out too late that they've wasted the last 10 some odd years of their lives in a career that was not really a career, had no staying power, it wasn't gainful employment for the long term. But at the same time, it's necessary. This is something that had to happen. It should have happened a lot longer ago than it has. But that's the tragedy of it, I guess. People were built up into believing that they were important. And nope. But that doesn't mean that DEI is actually totally gone, because the subversive efforts continue. DEI woven into plans for major South Carolina cities draws scrutiny from state leaders and DOJ. South Carolina's leading cities have systemically embedded diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives into their master plans, sparking outcry from top officials. Columbia, Charleston, Greenville, and Spartanburg are among the cities that have incorporated extensive DEI measures into foundational blueprints, including economic development, safety, transportation, housing, cultural, police, and fire department plans. Cultural police. I think the UK is experiencing that right now. And fire department plans, according to an investigation by the Washington Examiner. Upon reviewing those measures, several South Carolina lawmakers, including Representative Ralph Norman, who is campaigning to become the state's next governor, are speaking out, saying DEI has, quote, no place, unquote, in the state. South Carolina Lieutenant Governor Pamela Yvette, also a GOP gubernatorial candidate, has added her voice to the fray, arguing that such policies are, quote, dangerous and undermine public safety, unquote. And the Justice Department said it is on, quote, high alert, unquote, warning that DEI initiatives such as these in South Carolina risk violating citizens' constitutional protections of fairness and equal treatment under the law, unquote. I'm glad someone's paying attention. Quote, taxpayer dollars should never be used to enforce policies and initiatives that give preferential treatment based on unlawful racial discrimination, Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights at the Department of Justice Harmeet Dillon said in a statement. Gosh, where have we heard that language before? Oh, could it be Title VI? Boy, that's the second time today, second article, where a reference, at least abstractly, to Title VI comes up. Gosh, what are the odds? Let's see. Quote, this division will be on high alert to ensure all American cities respect our nation's civil rights laws, unquote. While South Carolina is a solidly red state, Judge Glock, director of research at the Manhattan Institute, said he's not surprised DEI programs are active in its cities. That's partly because most red states haven't passed comprehensive laws banning DEI or explicit racial preferences in all public institutions. Well, I need someone to explain this to me. I need an actual lawyer to explain this to me. Why do you need a law banning DEI when the mechanisms that DEI serves are already banned effectively in existing civil rights laws? That's the part I've never quite understood, and I think I've said it several times, that making laws and statutes that target the words diversity, equity, and inclusion just open up legal loopholes and confusion. Why not just affirm existing civil rights laws? Or, as I've said, DEI should have some kind of IRS, where if you are a company that has either currently or previously declared a adherence to DEI, that you should be regularly audited for compliance with existing civil rights laws. You know, if your programs and activities risk, violating people's constitutional rights, that should be something that should be penalized, or at least pointed out before, the hammer comes down. I'm not quite sure why we need extra laws for things that are already very well stated in existing law. Let's see. That's partly because most red states haven't passed comprehensive laws banning DEI or explicit racial preferences in all public institutions, he said, and also because the Biden administration's Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act often conditioned federal grants for housing and transportation and infrastructure projects on adopting DEI-style policies. This encouraged DEI's spread nationwide, quote, even in more conservative areas, Glock said. Yeah, that was one of the most insidious things, is that our federal government, and even under Trump's administration, first time around too, put these requirements, these quotas, as contingencies on receiving federal grants. How that got by and was allowed in the first place, I don't know. But it shouldn't have been. I'm glad it's finally seemingly being rectified. Let's see, then we get down to specific cities and what they're doing. I'll just start with the first one. I won't read the whole article because it would take forever. Charleston. In response to questions, the city said that some DEI policies are being rolled back by Mayor William Cogswell, who last year became the first Republican to assume the position since 1877. Okay, well, rolled back, great. How do we prevent them from being rolled forward again in the future? Quote, the current administration is aware of the concerns raised and is working closely with its legal team to ensure that all city practices comply fully with state and federal laws, Deja Knight McMillan, Charleston's chief communications officer, said. DEI is ingrained in the city's 5-year housing plan. The, quote, Housing for a Fair Charleston plan for 2025 through 2029, quote, focuses on the importance of equity, of acknowledging that there are inherent inequalities present in our society that makes things more difficult for some, unquote. A disparity does not inherently indicate an inequity. But anyway, it heralds Seattle's Equitable Development Initiative. Equitable Development Initiative? Okay, which seeks to benefit, quote, historically marginalized communities as an example for Charleston. I don't know what to tell you. I don't think Seattle's track record over the last, say, 5 years is something that anybody would want to emulate. I just have this sneaking suspicion that if you actually looked at the condition of Seattle and Portland and other cities on the West Coast that have adopted these ideas, maybe that's not your role model. Just a thought. Just a thought. Although I like how this Seattle thing uses the same initials as DEI, the Equitable Development Initiative. Sneaky, sneaky. DEI is endorsed in the city's 2024 budget and capital improvement plan when speaking of practices set by the Medical University of South Carolina that infuse, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion across academic programs and at the highest administrative levels, unquote. The plan names ensure all Charleston's planning initiatives are, quote, viewed through an equity lens as a core responsibility and describes helping neighborhoods and organizations grow and develop equitably as a core responsibility. Equity, 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 core, 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 responsibility, responsibility, equity, core. DEI initiatives are championed in the city's 2022 through 2026 plan for the Charleston Fire Department. Oh boy. Tell me how they're doing that. As well as the city's 2020 through 2025 strategic leadership plan for the Charleston Police Department. Tell me, oh, tell me true. Is it the Equitable Standards Initiative for recruits and new hires? Something like that. Which states that, quote, diversity, equity, and inclusion will guide hiring, training, and promotion practices. The CPD's 2024 report also discusses how to implement DEI-oriented recommendations guarding against racial bias. Okay, you want to guard against racial bias? Get rid of DEI. DEI thrives and requires racial bias. The fire department's planning documents name a, quote, lack of diversity and a failure to be, quote, creating an inclusive environment, unquote, as a weakness, describe goals to improve DEI for members as an opportunity, and name as an objective plans to pursue a more diverse and inclusive environment within CFD within 1 to 3 years, including through a recommendation to increase DEI training, quote, for all command staff, unquote. Okay. Translation. There are too many white men, and specifically men, in the fire department, so we're going to adjust our thinking to allow a more diverse population. We're going to lower standards and preference people on the basis of their race or their gender in hiring and promotion practices. I know, spoiler alert. The CPD's report discusses the implementation of the CNA recommendations. It states that the department, quote, should closely re-examine the demographics of each specialized unit and team to ensure that these teams and units are diverse and inclusive. Racial and gender audits. And calls for the CPD to produce an annual demographic profile of sworn and civilian personnel, quote, tracking over multiple years, gender, race, ... and other relevant variables pertinent to having a diverse and inclusive department, unquote. Even now, they are encouraging, if not requiring, racial and gender quotas in so many words. Those are illegal. Illegal. Sick bird. Illegal. But here we are. Raucous like a hurricane. Renovatio. But those opposing this are not trying to stop them removing men, scribe. They are still happy to allow discrimination against men. Sure. Sure. Discriminating against the wrong kind of men or men in general. It's not about removing discrimination. It's about discriminating in the way that they prefer and being allowed to do so and having some kind of legal backing to it so they can try to avoid consequence to it. Let's see. Jill Powers, the River Daughter. Hi, Jill. Narcissists will never admit they're incompetent in 10 million years. I should know. My mother is one of those. So if I say that I'm incompetent, does that mean I'm a good person? I'm not a narcissist? No. Is that the loophole? Renovatio, lovely to see the face behind the voice, you dashing thing. Oh, you're making me blush. Thank you, Renovatio. Appreciate it. Yes, the reactions thus far have been, wow, you really look like your avatar, even though the avatar wasn't modeled after me, or, yeah, your voice matches your face, which is probably one of the most diplomatic things someone can say, because it doesn't really commit to anything on a, quality assessment. You look exactly like you sound. Nasally and weird? Great. Anyway, let's see. What else do we have here? So that was South Carolina. The Carolinas. Let's move on to... As DEI dies, corporate America faces serious risk. Oh my gosh. What's the serious risk? The serious risk could be the legal liabilities already endemic to companies that have been practicing DEI or still secretly practice DEI. Let's find out. Let's see. The era of performative virtue signaling may be over. What? Dude, this is the song that never ends. Performative virtue signaling will never end. Welcome to social media, anyway, and the era of accountability for violating state and federal civil rights laws has begun. Fingers crossed. Knock Formica. I want to see something. I wish to see something substantive. In that regard, because so far I haven't seen any meaningful action taken by the federal government against private enterprise. Universities and so on, great. I'm still waiting for federal contracts to be yanked from some of these corporations that still push DEI. I'm waiting for the day. I'll be happy when it happens. Mark Fields, thank you so much. You're fine, bro. Look forward to more Conan reviews. Yes, I've been in contact with Andre. I'm all caught up with the current Conan stuffs. I even received my copy of the new Conan tabletop RPG books. I got on the Kickstarter for that. It's from Monolith. Previously, Modifius had the license to that. They did an excellent job. The Modifius books, I have almost all of them. And their books are almost literally, and I can say that, a reference library for everything Conan. And I haven't looked through all the Monolith stuff yet, but it looks pretty good. And so I have my deluxe set with a set of dice, and it came with a map of Hyboria and supplemental books and all types. Oh, it's great. It's great. But yes, as soon as I can get things arranged with Andre, we're going to start hopefully getting into the Conan reviews more regularly. It just everything got kind of sidetracked because of life stuff. But thank you, Mark. Let's see. For years, corporate America treated DEI as a moral shield, a marketing strategy, and an ideological weapon. True enough. But state attorneys general, legislatures, and courts are now making clear that there's a fine line between diversity efforts and unlawful discrimination, and many companies ran across it. It hasn't been that fine a line, in my experience. And yes, many companies ran across it and are now about 2 country miles down the road. State attorneys general in Tennessee, Missouri, Texas, and elsewhere have launched investigations into racially discriminatory fellowships, internships, recruiting, employment practices, and contracting preferences. These DEI programs were likely insufficiently vetted by in-house counsel or hand-waved by in-house counsel because they were banking on affirmative action theory to cover their asses. Pardon my French. And built on the premise that they were not subject to state and federal civil rights laws prohibiting discrimination based on race, let alone state and federal constitutional provisions guaranteeing equal protection under the law. Well, then they are very poor attorneys. They are very poor in-house counsel if they were like, yeah, this is fine. This is fine. These policies now face increased scrutiny from state and federal enforcers. Yeah, Under the new DOJ guidance for recipients of federal funding, even well-intentioned DEI programs that treat individuals differently on the basis of race risk running afoul of federal anti-discrimination laws. And with Harmeet Dillon overseeing DOJ's Civil Rights Division and already intervening in EEOC DOJ conflicts, plus acting EEOC Chair Andrea Lucas signaling heightened scrutiny of DEI practices, corporations can no longer assume immunity merely by invoking good intentions. Good, but as the previous article stated, one of the complications they're going to run into is government grants and funding that was, in writing from the federal government, contingent on adhering to DEI type quotas and requirements. How does the federal government punish a company for following the rules set by the federal government in order to receive federal funding? That's going to be a tough one. And this is why I think the biggest and best direction to take in sending a message is to go after those companies and organizations that are not complicated by those things. And that's private business. For their hiring practices, their promotional practices, their recruiting, and so on. If they have a government contract that was not requiring them to meet some kind of diversity goal or something, great, go after them too. But the companies that were just following the rules set for them, whether they agreed with them or not, that's going to be a tougher hill to climb. What started as corporate social engineering has become a legal problem. It was always a legal problem. It just wasn't, the laws were simply never enforced. Since the Students for Fair Admission ruling in 2023, state and federal agencies have begun to enforce civil rights laws against corporations. Students for Fair Admissions dealt with Title VI. Okay, it was a Title VI ruling. A necessary one, but a Title VI ruling. That said nothing and gave no protection, or what was going on previously, gave no protection to companies under Title VII for hiring. They could have been going after those companies for years, but they didn't. They haven't. Maybe now they will. We'll see. Once you start discriminating based on race, the government no longer cares how noble your intentions may have been. Now, only now do they care. The last legal defense of race-based decision-making. I think something must have was cut off in the article because that's half a sentence. Corporate DEI policies that award preferences or limit access to benefits based on race or sex face serious legal consequences. I can only hope. When the facts and the law are lined up against a company, a persuasive DEI PowerPoint slide deck won't preclude serious legal risk, civil fines, or monetary damages. Show me, please, in big, giant swaths across corporate America. Show me. I've been waiting 9 years. If a corporate DEI plan reads like a quota, and most of them do, then expect a subpoena. Can't wait. In hiring, diversity goals or actual quotas that pressure managers to consider race are illegal. Are they? Great. Well, then go after every single company that set a financial incentive and bounty on reaching diversity goals to its upper management. It's right there. Big red flags right there. Hey, easy targets. Low-hanging fruit. They've been doing this stuff for years. It was illegal the whole time? What? Vendor programs or any request for a proposal that require minority ownership or specific diversity goals are illegal. Could have fooled me. Scholarships, fellowships, internships, and training programs made available only to certain races or one sex are illegal. That's what I've been saying for the better part of a decade. Corporations don't have to abandon inclusion. Inclusion means equal opportunity. It's always meant equal opportunity, not equality of outcome. If you mean equal opportunity when you say inclusion, then I'm right there with you. But that's not what inclusion has meant for the better part of the last decade or more. Anyway, this is just kind of saying what everybody who had half a brain already knew. And I was one of them. Nice to hear, I guess. It's a nice, affirmation of things. But like I say, I'm waiting for the big kahuna. I'm waiting for the Meta or the Amazon or I guess the Coca-Cola or the American Airlines to actually have to suffer consequences for years and years and years of violating federal law. And nothing's happened. If American Airlines suddenly had all of its federal contract money pulled, that would send a message. If Amazon suddenly lost all their federal contracts because of their racial discrimination in hiring and everything over the last 10 years, that'd be something. That would send a message. But right now, haggling with universities over research grants, you got to find... You have to find a corporate poster child. I don't know who it's going to be. There's plenty to choose from. But you have to find an example. You have to set an example, and somebody has to pay a significant price. I understand it'll probably just be monetarily. But if it were me, and there was a Meta or an Amazon or an American Airlines or... Oh, who else? Gosh, so many things. HP, if they had federal contracts and I could point to their diversity report from 2023 or something that showed that their goal was to reach a particular racial quota in a particular timeline, I just yank their contracts immediately. I just cut off all the money and say, nope, gone. You're not getting them back. Not unless or until you prove that you're in compliance. And that's going to be a couple of years. Because we're going to be watching. And it can't just be lip service. It can't just be we changed some words on the website. It's got to be actual change to your policies. Demonstrable change. I've already said it once. Won't say it again. Yeah. Irate Alex only gets one cameo per stream at most. I'm not feeding into his ego anymore. Walter Tomaszewski. I've been made to feel incompetent and an autistic child at work. It might have something to do with the arts in Seattle. Man, I remember when Monkey Satsu and I were covering CHOP. What? And that was what, 5 years ago now? Where does the time go? Oh, that's right. Locked down and isolated from everybody. And just watching... Portland and Seattle and Los Angeles over the last couple of years. Man, what disaster areas. What absolute disaster areas. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Trump just got the go-ahead from... Let me check this real quick. U.S. Appeals Court allows Trump to send troops to Portland, Oregon. So what was being restricted by a district judge on appeal has now been lifted. So there's going to be a little bit of Los Angeles, Chicago shenanigans taking place in Portland here pretty soon. And man, there's going to be some footage. There's going to be some footage. I can't wait. Well, not in the sense that I want terrible things to happen, but really, that nonsense needs to stop. That nonsense needs to stop. Abdicaz, private companies should not get federal funding to begin with. Federal contracts are one thing, but funding, no. Well, contracts, that's fine. Contracts for work, sure. There are other things that are considered federal funding by extension, like tax subsidies or things like that. All depends on the situation, but regardless, a company that is or is suspected of practicing DEI should be the last companies on the list to receive federal contracts, or should have their bid rejected out of hand, in my mind. Talking about at the top of the show, the people trying to find jobs with DEI on their resume, the same thinking, I hope, is happening now when it comes to approving federal contracts. That if you are a company that has practiced DEI in the past and are just making a performative change in changing some words on your website or whatever, you should fall out of consideration immediately, unless you can prove or accept monitoring for compliance. But I digress. Let's see. Let's talk about the War Department, or the Department of War. Something's going on at the Department of War. If you can believe it, a conflict is taking place in the Department of War. Gentlemen, you can't fight in here. This is the war room. Anybody know what movie that's from? If you do, congratulations. DEI defiance at the War Department? ? In early 2025, President Trump and Secretary Hegseth directed the elimination of all DEI efforts within our armed forces and refocused the attention of our armed forces to its core mission, combat readiness, and meritocracy. 40 to 50 years ago, in response to a number of cultural issues stemming from the post-Vietnam War era and civil rights era, a number of affinity groups were established to support the armed forces. Oh my gosh. Affinity groups, ERGs, Dr. Strangelove, says Advocatus, and Somnambulation, and Daryl Odell, and Frosted Glass. I'm going to assume that all happened simultaneously, and you guys are all just movie nerds, all at once, so kudos. These affinity groups were formed to address, quote, perceived racial, ethnic, and gender issues and inequalities, unquote, and they believed that they were improving the readiness and the missions of our armed forces through their attention to these issues. Forming just on the dawn of the Civil Rights era or after the Civil Rights Act was passed, I could kind of understand to make sure that things are being implemented as wanted. This far after the fact, yeah, not so much. Let's see. And they believe they are improving the readiness and the missions of our armed forces through their attention to these issues. Specifically, these stovepiped nonprofit affinity groups were formed to individually support African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and women. Moreover, these affinity groups received financial and operational support through memorandums of understanding from their respective personnel and diversity offices of the armed forces in order to advance what eventually became diversity, equity, and inclusion, and other personnel initiatives including leadership, career management, and of course, meritocracy. Notwithstanding the direction from President Trump and Secretary Hegseth to rely on merit alone, the following nonprofit affinity groups have stayed active, performing their respective missions. Okay, well, what exactly does each one do? Because just saying affinity groups are bad, not necessarily so. The devil's in the details. And so, quote, the all-inclusive Hispanic Latino Leader Resource Group, resource groups, for the U.S. Maritime Services, founded in 1981 by the first Secretary of the Navy of Hispanic descent, sounds preferential, the Honorable Eduardo Hidalgo, the Association of Naval Services Officers, and so has long served as a mentoring and career development focused organization. In addition to supporting outreach within America's underserved communities, and so directly supports members in their decision to remain in their respective services and also help those who separate or retire find outside employment through its extensive network, unquote. As long as you are Hispanic or Latino. I'm assuming. NNOA. NNOA. The National Naval Officers Association, actively supports the U.S. Sea Services in the development of a diverse officer corps through recruitment, retention, and career development. How do you define diverse? NNOA is essential in maintaining operational readiness, I'm sure you think so, by providing professional development, mentoring, and support of cultural awareness. Support of cultural awareness. NNOA established and maintains a positive image for the USC services in communities and educational institutions. You know, it really sounds like these first two organizations kind of have an overlap. It's like, it's about professional development, mentoring. Great. No problem there. Why do we have to cubbyhole each one to specific demographics? Why can't we just have an all-inclusive professional development organization within the armed forces or the individual branches thereof? CISLA. Sea Services Leadership Association, a nonprofit organization that supports the professional development of women in the sea services. Why discriminate? Including the Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard. It provides mentorship, educational resources, and networking opportunities through events like the annual Joint Women's Leadership Symposium, or JWLS, Jewels, because, you know, diamonds are a girl's best friend, the largest gathering of women in uniform in the nation. Okay. HUVLA. Good God, y'all. Quote, our military leaders should mirror the face of America, reflecting the enlisted troops they lead and the public they protect. The Hispanic Veterans Leadership Alliance is a nonprofit organization of senior leaders, military and civilian, committed to overcoming the profound lack of Hispanic diversity and inclusion throughout the senior ranks of the DoD. So the senior ranks are not the right color. How shall we address this problem? Who shall rid me of this turbulent priest? The senior ranks have the wrong look, is what you're saying. Okay. Our mission is to enhance military mission readiness. No, it isn't. By advocating for policies, processes, and programs across all levels of military and civilian leadership, especially at the most senior levels within the Department of Defense, you mean the Department of War, that reflect the growing populations they lead and defend. No. Your mission is not to enhance military readiness. Your mission is to populate senior staff in the military with the racial preferences that you desire. You said it yourself in your own mission statement here. You're committed to overcoming the profound lack of Hispanic diversity and inclusion throughout the senior ranks of the DoD. You can't fool me. You said it yourself. Moving on, subsequent to this key direction and refocus by our Commander-in-Chief and our Secretary of War, the Chief of Naval Operations in February 2025 canceled all MOUs with the aforementioned affinity groups. However, some resistance has been voiced. Specifically, the SSLA president stated that, quote, the cancellation of their MOU was a difficult blow to their organization, unquote. I know, when you're no longer officially sanctioned for your discriminatory practices, even well-meaning ones, it's got to be tough. In spite of the direction and refocus by our civilian leadership, these stovepiped affinity groups continue to operate under the guise of promoting meritocracy and leadership, all the while promoting some form of DEI. The last example was probably the most dramatic and incoherent. Like, you know, our goal is to make sure we have the right skin colors in leadership, but really we're here for effectiveness and readiness. Mm-hmm. The existence and the activities of these affinity groups unconsciously widen the divisions of race. No, it's not unconscious. No, I just read their statements. It's not unconscious. It's very conscious. It's very intentional. It's right out there. But anyway, unconsciously widen the divisions of race, ethnicity, and gender in our armed forces, which is contrary to unity, cohesion, and a single focus of mission, combat readiness, and meritocracy. Furthermore, these affinity groups appear to be overtly political, you don't say. They need to refrain from any political tendencies and public comments that imply any connection and alignment with congressional factions, specifically the Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the Black Congressional Caucus. Excuse me. Unfortunately, there have been times when there have been some political leanings, tendencies, and comments by these affinity groups that fall outside their vision and mission area. I don't think they fall outside their vision or their specific mission area. Moreover, political activities are in direct violation of Section 501c3 of the U.S. Internal Revenue Code and therefore jeopardizes the 501c3 status of these affinity groups with the IRS. Political activities are in direct... Is that true? Can a 501c3 not take part in political activities? Because I've covered several 501c3s in the past, that were decidedly political. A nonprofit's right to exist is sound as long as they comply with the 501c3 legal restrictions. However, the armed forces should not have to provide a soapbox from which these organizations can preach their poison within the Department of War. So, with the continuing existence of these affinity groups, the public needs to be aware of the actions, meetings, and publications of these affinity groups, well, especially if they've been receiving taxpayer money, and be prepared to immediately counter anything related to DEI that come from these affinity groups by calling attention to their improper activity to DOW leaders. Wow. Well, I'm glad our Department of War has been taking this so seriously. Yeah, and this is the same thing that's happened in employee resource groups to some more corporate extent. You have these organizations that are cloistered around a particular demographic, and they promote separation and segregation, even if they say, "Oh, we're open to everybody." But then, why are you not titled that way? Why do you not promote an all-inclusive idea rather than saying, "Oh, this is for this racial demographic, this is for that ethnic demographic," etc. And they've been receiving federal funding, taxpayer money. I'm glad the crackdown is happening. Jim Healis, 501c3 cannot, 501c4 can do politics. I suppose the gray area is what counts as politics. If I'm promoting a DEI ideology, is that inherently political? At this point, I'd say so. You know, if I see a 501c3 organization promoting Black Lives Matter, I'd say that's probably political. But I suppose there is some, legal gradients as to how that is assessed. And also, it also requires, and this is something I've obviously had to learn over the years, it doesn't matter if something's illegal. If it's not enforced, it becomes functionally legal. So if you have a couple hundred 501c3s out there that are technically, or not even technically, violating that restriction, but nobody cares, the government takes no action, doesn't care to look into it. You have corporations and organizations violating civil rights law left, right, and center for 10 years, and the EEOC either doesn't or can't do anything about it. Does it really matter? Is it really a law anymore? Anyway, what else I got? I got one more. I wanted to, I saw this. Now, this does not pertain to America. This pertains to our neighbors to the north. Because Canada may, and I emphasize may, be starting to have their own DEI reckoning. Let's find out. Opinion, this is from the Toronto Star. DEI isn't about lowering standards, but removing barriers that prevent qualified people from meeting them. Now, why do I say this indicates to me a DEI reckoning? Because this is where they're at. If you're defending DEI by saying it's not about lowering standards, if you have to make that argument this late in the game, not good. Not good. Diversity, equity, and inclusion are coming under scrutiny, and Pierre Poilievre, okay, can somebody, for my benefit, if somebody knows how to pronounce that guy's last name, can you type it phonetically into the chat? I want to get it right. I'm just terrible at some names, as many of you know. Unless you're Walter Tomaszewski, and I got it right on the first try. All right, how do I say that guy's name? Parlez-vous en français? See, I was hoping one of my classic, that makes you sound old, one of my longtime Canadian friends in the chat would be here to help me out. And who better than Gentee Maxi? Cosgrove. Paul Hiver. Paul Hiver? Is that right? Paul Hiver? Paul Hiver? Poilier. Poilier? Okay, now, who's jerking my chain? Is Cosgrove jerking my chain, or is Advocatus jerking my chain? Okay, well, unless or until there's a consensus, I'll just move on the idea. Poiliev. Poliev? Poliev. Just say chowder. 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 No, it's chowder, Frenchie. It's chowder. I can speak Simpson. Okay, Pulliver. 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 Arose by any other name. Okay. As a human rights lawyer and member of both the Order of Canada, the Order of Canada, sounds threatening, and Ontario, I've spent more than 3 decades dismantling barriers for people with disabilities. We're not talking about disabilities, unless you want to categorize race and gender as an inherent disability, which most DEI programs effectively do, but let's move on. The Conservative Party's petition to end DEI and, quote, restore the merit principle, unquote, reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of how systemic barriers actually work. Do tell. Merit sounds fair until you recognize that not everyone starts from the same position. Oh my God! Do you mean to tell me that life isn't fair? And so, if not everybody starts at the same position, and by implication you aim to rectify that, how does one solve for that problem? Anybody have any ideas? How does one solve for not everybody starts in the same position? Any ideas? I was born profoundly deaf. Okay. Without the captioning accommodations I fought for at Ryerson University, as it then was, and Western law, my merit would have been invisible, buried beneath inaccessible lecture halls and courtrooms. Hey, I know I'm talking about Canada here, but I can't help but, sort of mirror things over to the United States. Making accommodations for people with physical, tangible disabilities is not the same as diversity, equity, and inclusion. You guys want to think that you're on the same level in all of those things, that you can equate race and gender and ethnicity with a physical disability and veteran status. We've seen this before. It's not true. It's a dodge. The same intelligence, work ethic, and legal acumen existed before those accommodations, but the system couldn't see it. Well, and is deafness a race? Is deafness a gender? This is what DEI critics miss. Okay, well, I am a DEI critic. Merit-based systems only work when everyone has equal opportunity to demonstrate merit. Yes, equal opportunity. But here's the thing. If I am 5'10", and even if I have the equal opportunity to become an NBA basketball player, I'm not going to become an NBA basketball player more likely than not up against people who are 6'3" or 7 foot. It's just, and not because I'm not a good person. I might even have talent in playing basketball. But merit doesn't mean everybody wins. This is what seemingly this author doesn't seem to understand. Merit is not a promise of success. There are no promises. There are no guarantees. And if you try to engineer guarantees, you're only undercutting talented people and raising up people who shouldn't be there. Not because they're bad people, not because they're unworthy of attention or love or something, but because either you have the ability to do something or you don't. All right? A brilliant lawyer who uses a wheelchair cannot show their skills if they cannot physically enter the courthouse. Again, I'm carrying it over to America, but Americans with Disabilities Act. You have a physical limitation that is you cannot overcome. Are you going to equate skin color and gender with a physical disability? Because that's what this is sounding like. DEI isn't about lowering standards, but removing barriers that prevent qualified people from meeting them. No, it isn't. The language of identity checkboxes and woke ideology obscures a simple truth, okay? Inclusive policies exist, so DEI policies, because exclusion was and remains the default. What does DEI do again? I spent years becoming the first to secure captioning in courts. You see what this guy's doing? He keeps vacillating between an identifiable physical disability that, by all rights, should be accommodated for as much as it can be, because being deaf doesn't stop you from using your mind, or using your voice, or writing down words, or taking physical actions. Right? You can be a deaf intellectual, you could be a mute intellectual. And you shouldn't be denied an opportunity for something if that disability does not inherently prevent you from undertaking that job. Now, if I was armless and legless, I probably wouldn't be able to easily get a job in lifting boxes on a dock site. Not because I'm an unworthy human, but because I'm physically incapable of fulfilling the necessities of the job. But you keep moving between, oh, look, yeah, DEI, physical disability. DEI, physical disability. I spent years becoming the first to secure captioning in courts, universities, and theaters, not because merit didn't matter, but because systemic barriers made merit irrelevant. Rolling back equity and inclusion won't create fairness. Okay, this is verbal alchemy, and it's not a particularly good sleight of hand. You need to tell me how race is a physical disability akin to deafness. That's what you're saying. And I'm not even like making it up. This is what you are saying. You are equating a physical disability, like deafness, like blindness, with pigmentation or genitalia. Now, admittedly, depending on the circumstances, one's genitalia may indeed be a physical disability under the right circumstances, or wrong circumstances, the case may be. You could get very embarrassed depending, but you know what I'm saying. Canada has long distinguished itself through the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and the belief that diversity strengthens us. Diversity in what wise? Abandoning equity doesn't restore merit, it abandons Canadian values recognizing everyone's potential. No. Equity does not recognize potential. Equity ignores potential for an equitable outcome. It strives to have everybody end up at the same place no matter their potential. Their potential is irrelevant. Their skills are irrelevant. Everything has to look fair by having everybody end up at the same place no matter what. True merit requires equity, not in the way that equity is defined today. The dictionary definition of equity is akin to justice and equality. However, equity in the DEI context is equality of outcome, not equal opportunity. These are two very, very different things. Let's see. People are tired of hearing the same old criticisms from conservative leader Pierre and his caucus. Opposition to diversity, equity, and inclusion. People are tired. Says who? You? I'm not tired of hearing them. I'm tired of people who should listen to them not. You might even say they've turned a deaf ear to such criticisms. Does this ever sound like what we are hearing south of the border from U.S. President Donald Trump? Was this a question? Was that supposed to be a question mark? Does this ever sound like what we are hearing south of the border from U.S. President Donald Trump? I feel like there should be a question mark at the end of that sentence. Canada was indeed lucky not to have elected a Pierre Poilievre government. It's time for a change in the leadership of the official opposition. So wait, let me get this straight. You want the official opposition to agree with the philosophy of the other side. Wait. I want everybody to be agreeable. You know, that might be the most Canadian thing to wish for, I suppose. And then we move on to other things that deal with traffic cameras and such. Okay, well, there you go, guys. There's an opinion from, who is this from? Lauren MacDonald of Toronto. Lauren MacDonald, who I suppose is a lawyer and functionally deaf, profoundly deaf. And Lauren believes that DEI is about enabling captioning and wheelchair access, just like race and gender are physical barriers to having a job. Didn't take the time to say it, and it's kind of worrying that a lawyer would be putting deafness on the same level as melanin count, but hey, Canada is, as far as I know, a free country. So. Renovation. Equity in DEI doesn't mean equality of outcome. It means superiority of outcome for certain IDPO groups and therefore inferiority to target groups. True. I mean, it still requires a filtration process of gender and or race and or orientation. Trying to, level things off or bring parity to disparity, whether you like it or not, whether it's deserved or not, whether it makes sense or not. So true. Fair enough. Mr. E. Triumphant. I'm colorblind. Now, what exactly do you mean you're colorblind? You don't see my race? What are you? Deuteranopia, to be specific. Oh, you have actual color. Oh. I have my father's aptitude for electronics. I know that is a terrible idea. Well, if any action movie has taught me anything, it's that if you can't tell the red wire from the green wire, you're in deep trouble. So if you're an electrician, I can't read the color coding, and that's important. I'm not an electrician. Oh, I see what you're saying. And see, there's the thing. There's a disability that just functionally is a showstopper for certain careers. It's not because, obviously, you don't have the brains to do it, you don't have the interest or the passion for the subject matter, but there comes a point where it's like, I literally cannot do the thing that is necessary to do the thing. And that's not the system holding you back. That's just reality. Unfortunately, right? What was it? There was... think about... it's the most sort of cliched storyline that you've seen in movies and TV shows. The star football player, the quarterback or the athlete or somebody who they get into a car accident or they have that one bad break or something. They tear their ACL or they end up in traction for a year or something, and their bone doesn't quite heal correctly, and an entire athletic career is in shambles for no fault of their own. It just, something happened, and then they just can't literally do the thing anymore. Did the system punish them for being too good? Did the god Nemesis come down and, humble them? Maybe. But this lawyer is trying to say, oh, well, I'm not able to do certain things because of something that's inherently wrong with my body as compared to most people. Something is damaged, can't be undone, and I'm at a disadvantage because of it. If that's how you see someone's race, if that's how you inherently see someone's gender, and you look at them and say, oh, what a shame. You might be the problem. Anyway, so there you go, guys. That is the latest on DEI Deathwatch. A couple more comments here, and then we will move on. Kira Soldier, your shirt is similar to those worn by lefty pseudo-intellectuals. It is? Because it has buttons? By my garb shall you know me? Okay, now I'm gonna be all like fashion conscious when I come on here. I should go put on my Punisher shirt. If I put on my Punisher shirt, will that like ward off any suspicions about my political leanings or intellectual preferences or something? I could. Maybe next time. Not right now. I got these over-the-ear headphone things like the drummers have. Because if I have my actual like headphones on, it makes my hair look weird. Pushes my hair forward. Maybe I am a narcissist. Only Jill Powers can tell me for sure. Anyway, go put on a black ball cap and cosplay as Nostalgia Critic. Somebody said I look like Nostalgia Critic. I don't think so, but whatever. Needs a bow tie. When I put this on earlier, I had thought to myself, I really probably should have like a tie on or something. I thought of trying to find, I think I have like a red necktie somewhere. I thought it looked pretty good, red on black, but I'm not dressing up for a job. I'm just doing a live stream. Anal Lynn, what if the race realism people are correct and we wind up with a racial underclass? That's what DEI has been aiming for forever. They want to elevate certain races into positions of authority and power and station and, suppress and vilify others. It's kind of worked in some places. In some companies, it's worked. Need a mock turtleneck with elbow patches. Well, you never see the elbows. Unless I could change the thing to a square, I guess. You look like a waiter to me. Well, you see, Advocatus, I am. I'm serving up news and thoughtful commentary. Red on black is a little Hugo Boss. Ew. Well, I don't want to be branded in any particular way. Unless it's a sponsorship. I'll take a spot. I don't know. Does Hugo Boss do sponsorships? I wish I could get a sponsorship from Jack Daniels and Dr. Pepper independently. And I could just promote both on any particular stream. And they wouldn't have to worry about it. It's non-political, right? Endorsing one or the other doesn't say anything about anything. Just products that I use, products that I endorse. This is Kyle. Thank you so much. Nice to see you. Oh, God, you lied to me. You're not a painting at all. I want my money back. I apologize. I thought turning that off would turn on my avatar. It didn't. I don't know what I'm doing. This is as much as I haven't gotten quite used to all the options and having cameras on. Like I can't make this smaller unless I've got an article off to the side. If I have an article or something off to the side, then this shrinks down. But as far as I know, I don't have any options for making this smaller. I can go square, I can go widescreen, or I can go giant circle. That's about it, apparently. So, anyway, everybody, that is the show, if you can believe it. Returning to DEI Deathwatch after a couple of weeks off. Oh, by the way, for those of you that are keeping track, I just got an update this morning from Sister Scribe on the condition of my mother's knee. She went in for a checkup, and everything is looking great. The swelling is non-existent. There's no infection. She doesn't have any particular pain. She's still in, recovery. So she's still, slowly gaining function back, and things are still healing. But as far as it looks like, things are on good track. She'll have to stay wearing this brace Velcro knee boot thing for at least another month, according to the doctors. But she's well on her way to healing, and she's got a great support system around her, a lot of friends and neighbors. So if Sister Scriber or I can't be there, that she's got plenty of people to rely upon if something does happen. But fingers crossed, knock Formica. Anyway, did you guys know I have a Discord server? I have a Discord server. Link to the Discord server is in the chat right now. If you'd like to join the Discord server, click on that link. You'll find yourself on the landing channel called Say Hello. And in addition to saying hello, you just have to say the secret word. The secret word will tell me that you're not a bot. Actually watch the stream, and if thus are in the right, the privilege, the entitlement to join the Discord server. And today's secret word is If you spell out something that is vaguely similar to I'll know that you watch the show, because where else would you get that from? Programming note. Since I'm doing this today, there will not be a stream tomorrow. I've got appointments and things I have to deal with. Unless something else comes up, there should be a TED Excellence this week, Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, where I'll take a look at another off-brand TED Talk. Also, I am hoping to do a special Halloween TED Excellence next Thursday. Not this Thursday, next Thursday, because it's Halloween Eve, if I'm not mistaken. And I even created a special Halloweeny TEDx opening video. Ooh, you'll have to see that when the time comes. I might even dress up. Not sure as what yet. I don't know what I have that makes for a decent costume. Maybe I'll just dress up as some kind of left-wing intellectual and just wear this shirt again. But that'll be coming up on Thursday. But elsewise, everybody, thank you so much for joining me. Moderators, thank you for keeping an eye on things, even though everyone here is so well behaved. You have very, very little to do. Everybody who donated either to myself or to the donation link at the top of the chat box to the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, thank you guys so much for your generosity. Very much appreciated. With that, everyone, hope you have a good rest of your Monday. I hope the rest of the week ahead of you goes well. And I hope you are all safe and well. If you're not well, please get well soon. And I will see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.